I don't know what's happening, you guys. I can't tell if I'm live because it just keeps going around. Okay, now I'm live. Okay, hi guys. I was having some technological problems there for a second. Welcome to Advocates for Angels Monday Morning Facebook Live. I'm Valerie Abrahamian, the IEP Navigator, and I help parents receive the special education program their child needs to thrive, both in school and in life after high school. And this morning's Facebook Live is entitled AB1172 Requires Mandatory Evidence-Based Practice Training for Staff Who Works with a Student on an IEP. So last year, the Education Code 56366.1 small a, which was amended by the AB 1172 last year, requires that any non-public school, non-public agency, or non-sectarian school must be trained in evidence-based practices. So what are evidence-based practices? They are research-based training, behavioral training conducted by highly qualified people in behavior, and typically it's usually a BCBA, to ensure that those people working with the student on an IEP understand how to provide positive behavior interventions, how to replace maladaptive or disruptive or challenging behaviors, and that they understand especially how to work with students on the autism spectrum, which is a huge component to the success of your child's IEP program, because if your teacher, if those aides, if those service providers don't understand how to work with a child with behaviors, then your child is not going to have access to a curriculum or make progress towards their goals, because behavior always impedes access to an education. So it's hugely important. Now, what if it's just your local school district and it's a public school? You can still request parents that your IEP at an IEP meeting or through an email that your team is trained in evidence-based practices if your child has behaviors that impede their ability to progress towards their goals. Now, behavior isn't just maladaptive or, challenging or, disruptive behaviors. Behavior can be that your child's attention to task, ability to follow directions, ability to, just take part in group sessions or take part in class um, academic instruction. So behavior really runs the gamut in mostly everything with the success of your child's learning during the day. So don't think of it as behavior is just for kids on the autism spectrum or kids, with emotional disturbance. All behavior that impedes a child to access the curriculum is behavior that requires evidence-based practices for a child in an IEP. So that's what I wanted to, and that's a fairly new, that AB 1172 that was enacted last year. That's why I'm talking about it, because this school year, all those non-public schools and non-sectarian schools were required to have that completed by October 1st. So that's why I'm bringing it to your attention today. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is a article that just came out on the 12th from the Disability Scoop, and it talks about the Ed Department reminds schools of IDEA obligations during the pandemic. Okay, because once again, as I've been talking about since April of 2020, school districts are not implementing the IEP. They are violating IDEA, and they continue to do so, even though we're now in October, the middle of October. So I want to just read you the first paragraph of this article from Disability Scoop. With an unprecedented school year underway, federal officials are weighing in yet again on how educators ought to be serving students with disabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic. The U.S. Department of Education issued 2 question and answer documents last week, offering further clarification on how the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and other laws should be implemented while the nation grapples with the coronavirus. The agency has now offered guidance at least a half dozen times since March on how services for those with disabilities should proceed amid the pandemic. The Education Department said the latest information comes in response to inquiries it has received. Above all, federal officials use the new guidance as another opportunity to impress upon educators their continued responsibilities under IDEA. Because, again, that they are not holding up to their responsibilities under IDEA, and that's what this article is all about. And that's why the State Department of Education, over a half dozen times, has provided guidance and sent out these question and answer forms to clarify the duty of every local school district. So it also goes on to say, no matter, quote, no matter what primary instructional delivery approach is chosen, state educational agencies and school districts and individualized education IEP teams remain responsible for ensuring that a free, appropriate public education, a FAPE, is provided to all children with disabilities. Reads the question and answer document issued by the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services, the Office of Special Education Programs. So again, I'm just bringing that to your attention, parents, because parents, if you don't realize or know what your rights are, what your parent rights are, what the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act entitles you and your child to receive, especially during the pandemic time, when kids across the nation are failing to receive an education, failing to have their IEPs implemented, kids are continuing to regress and lose skills that they gained and worked so hard to gain last year. Parents, your child is going to continue along that same road because we as parents are tasked with the job to hold our local school district accountable because they're not going to enforce the IEP. They are not going to implement the IEP as it is written during virtual schooling. They're not going to unless parents, you hold them accountable by holding IEP meetings, by asking the correct questions, by asking for progress on goals, for knowing what the guidelines are, and for making sure that your child is receiving an education. If your child can't access the virtual curriculum, meaning your child can't sit down in a chair, get on the computer, log on, get the link to the Zoom class, follow the directions by your teacher, have attention to task, be organized with what they're supposed to do, and know how to use technology, then your child doesn't have access to an education. And ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, says that is a violation of ADA and the 504 for failing to give access to students with disabilities. I've also talked about lots of other legal grounds that you can use to hold your local school district accountable during this time, because I know most parents are continuing to be required to be the one-on-one aid for their child. Otherwise, their child is not going to be able to even get on the computer to attend a Zoom class. So I want to just maybe tell you a little bit about my story, parents, and how I got to be a special education advocate and have been working and helping parents for the past 23 years, and why I'm so passionate about helping parents. So when my daughter Chanel was 3 years old, she was diagnosed with autism and a severe life-threatening seizure disorder at the age of 3 years old. And the UCLA department, they were a team of neurologists, pediatric neurologists, and they diagnosed Chanel and told me that she would never write, she would never read, she would never talk, and she would never be successful in school. When I took her to the local school district for a preschool placement, they wanted to place her in what's called the autism classroom. Many districts have different names for the autism classroom, and I disagreed with that placement. I never believed the team of neurological pediatric doctors that told me that bleak prognosis about my daughter, and I started learning my rights under IDEA. I started learning how to advocate, and I didn't believe the local school district or agree to that placement in an autism class. I fought for an inclusion program for my daughter, meaning that she would be placed in general education. This was in 1994, when school districts didn't even know what inclusion was at that time. And I was more or less a pioneer at that time in advocating for inclusion for my daughter. She was the first child on an IEP that was placed in a general education class with a diagnosis of autism, and continued to fight year after year after year at every IEP meeting to keep her on an inclusion track and diploma track and an inclusion program until she got into high school. And she did make it all the way to high school. She did learn how to talk very well. Even though she was nonverbal till she was 8 years old, she was able to write and read pretty close to grade level. She was behind, but she was able to receive her diploma, graduate with her class, and in fact, she graduated with honors from high school. And all of their bleak description and prognosis of my daughter was completely incorrect. Those doctors at UCLA, as well as the school district, who wanted to place her in the severely handicapped class, where she would never have the opportunity to get a diploma, to learn, to have access to the general education curriculum, and access to typical developing peers, which is why she was able to reach her potential, because she wasn't segregated in a severely handicapped class away from the typical population of kids. So that's why I'm so passionate. Now, the second reason is that during that time in 2005, I had been advocating since Chanel was about 6 years old. So that was back again in the mid 1990s. In 2005, about 10 years later, I had many clients by that time, had developed an advocacy agency, and our local school district was so corrupt and so adversarial to parents that I got a group of parents together, 75 parents together, and I led a revolt in our local school district. We protested. We were on the news. We were in the newspaper. We filed 14 fair hearings against the school district, and I was able to have the special ed administrators replaced by special education administrators who were willing to work ethically and collaboratively with parents, and completely reshaped the whole direction and trajectory of our school district at that time. So, and during that time, in 2006, about a year later, because this took a whole year of constant work, day after day after day, I was working with other advocates and attorneys on this. And during that time, right about the end of that time in 2006, my first daughter, Jessica, I lost her. She passed away in her sleep. Jessica was bipolar. She took meds for her bipolar disorder. She was she was 28 years old. She wasn't living at home. But she received services from the DDS, California DDS, and to make sure that she was safe, living independently, and that also she went to her doctor's appointments and remained, they oversaw her medical plan and made sure she was taking her medication. Well, when she moved from our home area where I could oversee that and make sure she was transferred up north where she moved because she wanted to move up north. And the regional center discontinued her services when she moved up north. So she didn't have those services. She stopped going to the doctor. She stopped taking her medication. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know that. And while I was appealing the fact that the regional center discontinued her services, and I was trying to get her back into the regional center, and I was appealing it, saying, how could you possibly discontinue her services when now she's not close to me and I can't oversee her taking her meds and going to the doctor. She needs it even more so now, living independently, hundreds of miles away from me. Yet they discontinued her services, and she passed away in her sleep. She wasn't sick. We didn't know anything was wrong with her other than the fact that I didn't know she was not taking her medication any longer. And so 2 of my daughters were severely affected by disability agencies. My daughter Chanel with the school district, had I not learned to advocate and make sure that Chanel was able to reach her potential and have that amazing outcome that she had with her education, she would have remained moderately handicapped with autism in a severely handicapped class. She probably would have never learned to talk. She certainly would have never gotten an education. And she would never be the independent woman she is today. Today she's 29 years old. She received her credential, California credential in dog grooming. She worked at a dog grooming spa for 2 years, and now she works saving animals at a animal rescue. And then with my first daughter, Jessica, she was a very bright, intelligent, artistic young woman. She was very, very smart and intelligent, and she lost her life because the state Department of Developmental Services let her down and failed her. So that is why I'm so passionate, parents, and that's why I have my Parent Monthly Membership Brigade, so I can teach, coach, educate, and empower parents to learn how to advocate to protect the rights of your child so your child can reach their potential in life, so your child can receive an education, so they gain the skills that they need to leave high school to live an independent, purposeful, productive, and happy life. Because parents, if your child doesn't get an education, they're not going to leave high school with the skills they need to get a job or to possibly go on to secondary education, go on to college, to go on to a trade school. They're going to be living at home with you for the rest of their lives. And then I've seen the horrors when parents get too old to care for their disabled children. Those adult disabled children are placed in horrific state institution homes where they get abused. And that's the horrible end story of that game. So parents, I implore you, learn your rights, learn how to advocate for your child. In my monthly parent membership, I teach you the 7 steps you need, which are the same 7 steps I use to win the IEP game and to get your child the education they need to reach their potential. I have placed the link of the Parent Brigade membership in this Facebook Live. You can go to that link, you can check it out. And we're having amazing success with parents in this brigade. I started it back in April when the schools shut down. And we've already had many of those Parent Brigade members win compensatory services from March, April, May, and June. When they said no, 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 every single parent that asked, I want comp ed for March, April, May, and June, you'll get the no. That'll be your initial response from the district. And those parents went through my 7 steps, and they got awarded compensatory services for March, April, May, and June. So it is possible to win. I also have a mom who also is in the Parent Brigade at the superhero level, and she won a non-public school for 3 years. Now that non-public school cost the district somewhere between $55 and $70s. I don't know exact, but it's a lot of money. between 55, somewhere around there, and $70,000 a year. She won it for three. She was awarded 3 years at a non-public school, plus transportation, plus speech and language services that were on the IEP, plus occupational therapy that were on her IEP, and that takes it back up to another $15,000 a year on top of the tuition to have those services plus transportation. So, and she won it through my coaching, my 7 steps, being in the parent brigade. So we're having amazing success, parents, in this parent brigade. You will never be able to work with an advocate, get trained and coached, and get the knowledge you need from another advocate at this low of a price. I'm doing it because I want to help parents in their time of need now while schools are closed, because IDEA is being dismantled and being violated every day across the nation as we continue to experience virtual schooling. So thank you, parents. That's my Facebook Live for this morning. I hope everyone's staying safe and well, and I will see you next Monday on my next Facebook Live. Please like and share this video so we can reach as many other moms as we can possibly reach out there that need help. And please go to my Advocates for Angels Facebook page and like and follow that Facebook page as well. And I'll see you guys next Monday. Take care, everyone.